What's up, guys? This is Jensen and welcome to another video. So, most of the big names have signed at this point in free agency. And while things could still happen because, there's still a ton of big names left in the free agency market. And obviously, we all know how the NFL draft is going to go. I'm going to take a look at some of the underrated teams in the NFL after NFL free agency. And I think the most underrated team right now is my Chicago Bears. Yes, I'm being a homer right now, but I'm hyped up about the Nick Foles trade. I know that a lot of people at home think that the Nick Foles trade was bad. I love the Nick Foles trade. I think it was a great trade. I think this might be the trade of the year when we're talking about the NFL. Because when we're looking at Nick Foles, first what he did with Andy Reid all those years ago, even though it's a little irrelevant now, a 27-2 touchdown interception ratio. What he did with Doug Peterson in Philadelphia when he comes in that first year, he comes in, he backs up Carson Wentz, but all of a sudden, he has to spring into action because Wentz gets injured. He takes the Eagles to the Super Bowl, and then he beats the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick, obviously the greatest coach of all time. He takes them down in a shootout in the Super Bowl. But not only that, he comes in the next year, Wentz gets injured. The Eagles are injury-ridden because when we're looking at the Eagles from that year, they weren't as injury-ridden as they were last year, but there were a ton of injuries on that Eagles team. He leads them to 3 must-win games and wins, obviously, because they sneak into the playoffs. They beat my Chicago Bears at Soldier Field, which I think is absolutely crazy. It would be one thing if he did it at Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. He beats the Bears at Soldier Field, and even if you want to blame that on Parkey, it's still impressive. Then he almost beats the Saints at the Superdome. If Alshon Jeffrey doesn't drop that pass, the Philadelphia Eagles might have been going to the NFC Championship game, and the Rams were vulnerable at that time. When we look at the Patriots, how they performed in that Super Bowl, the Eagles could have won the Super Bowl if they would have been able to sneak past the Saints. So that's where I'm at with Nick Foles. I think he's an absolute stud. When we're looking at Andy Reid and Doug Peterson, Matt Nagy obviously comes from the Andy Reid tree, as does Doug Peterson. So I think we could see similar type success for Nick Foles. When we're looking at Allen Robinson and Anthony Miller, I think those two are going to make a very nice 1-2 wide receiver combo. When we're looking at David Montgomery, I think this dude is an underrated running back. I think he's going to blossom into a star this year. And that defense just got better. By signing Robert Quinn, that means less double teams on Khalil Mack. I think Eddie Jackson's still a stud at safety. Kyle Fuller at cornerback. Roquan Smith at middle linebacker. I could go on and on. That defense should return to number 1 overall form. I think the defense is going to be the number 1 defense in the NFL by a wide margin, because I think they're absolutely special. And I think this offense led by Nick Foles is going to be very, very good. And I'm being a little bit of a homer right now, but I'm hyped up. And normally I'm a pessimistic Bears fan. I'm about as pessimistic as they come. But when we're looking at this Bears team with Nick Foles at the helm, forget about Jacksonville. Jacksonville's dysfunctional situation last year when we're talking about Nick Foles. I think the Bears are right up there with the Green Bay Packers for the NFC North Division title. I think it's going to be a fight between the Bears and the Packers next year. And I'm hyped up because I think if the Bears can get into the playoffs, they can legitimately make the Super Bowl with Nick Foles at the helm. So I'm hyped up. It's positive vibes here in Chicago, according to me right now. Now, when we're looking at the Cleveland Browns, I think this team is also very underrated right now. Forget about last year. It was dysfunctional. Freddie Kitchens was clearly incompetent as a head coach. And there were clearly a lot of signs that Cleveland wasn't going to work last year. I mean, Baker Mayfield, he just didn't seem ready. But when we're looking at this team this year, I like the signing of Jack Conklin, the offensive lineman. I think that's going to really help out Baker Mayfield. Obviously, you get him Austin Hooper, one of the best tight ends in all of football. So you get him to help out Baker Mayfield. I think that being in Kevin Stefanski's system is going to do wonders for Baker Mayfield. This is exactly the type of quarterback and system that I would want Baker Mayfield to be in, because when we're looking at what Stefanski did with Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook last year, you can see something very similar with Baker Mayfield and Nick Chubb this year. A lot of play action, get the ball out of his hands quickly. Baker Mayfield is going to be a borderline MVP candidate, and I know that seems like a little bit of a hot take, but it's real. The hype is real in Cleveland this year. Last year, it might have been unjustified because a lot of us ignored the offensive line, but when we're looking at this team this year, it's real hype. We're looking at that defense. They should rebound very nicely. Myles Garrett's going to have a chip on his shoulder. Denzel Ward is still a stud at cornerback. There's a ton of talent on that defense. I really think this is the year when Cleveland puts it all together. And while I still think Baltimore is probably still the favorites, and when we're talking about the AFC North, I think Cleveland has to be among the favorites right now to get a wild card spot. And I predict that the Cleveland Browns will lock up a wild card spot. I think they're being severely underrated right now. based on last season. But when we're looking at this team this season, they're for real now. Baker's ready. Baker's going to step up. But, I mean, when we're looking at the Houston Texans also, this team is very underrated right now. And I know that the DeAndre Hopkins trade, I was among the greatest critics of this trade. This trade was a terrible trade. But let's not act like the Houston Texans are going to fall off the face of the planet right now. They still got Deshaun Watson at quarterback. And with Randall Cobb and Will Fuller, obviously it's not ideal circumstances considering you traded away a top 3 wide receiver. But let's not act like Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans are going to fall off the face of the planet. On defense, even though they're not great, they still have J.J. Watt. They still have McKinney at middle linebacker. So they're not going to fall off the face of the planet. Deshaun Watson alone gives them a chance to make the playoffs. And no team wants to play Deshaun Watson in the playoffs, as we saw last year with the Buffalo Bills and Houston Texans. The Bills were clearly the better team. It was clearly obvious. But when we're looking at Deshaun Watson, this dude has greatness written all over him. Even though I think the Titans are special and I think that the Titans have a good shot at the playoffs, I give the Texans as good of a shot to make the playoffs. I think it's 50-50 for the AFC South right now between the Texans and the Titans. And while I'm among the biggest critics of the Houston Texans, Bill O'Brien, what they've done there, Deshaun Watson alone, I cannot emphasize that enough. For no other reason other than Deshaun Watson, the Houston Texans are still relevant. And if they sneak into the playoffs, they can beat anyone. So Deshaun Watson alone makes the Texans underrated right now because people act like they're going to fall off the face of the planet. When the bottom line is that Deshaun Watson is such a great stud that they're not going to do that. They're not going to fall off. They're still going to be relevant. They'll still be in the AFC South playoff race. I can guarantee you that. But, I mean, we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Please like and subscribe. I'll be providing more NFL and NBA hot takes as the season goes on. Have a good day. Remember to follow me on Twitter, Jensen Sports. See y'all later.